He realized the boy didn't hate rules. He hated feeling unheard. One question changed their relationship more than any lecture. This question turns conflict into understanding. Describe your opponent's view accurately, and hostility softens. Truth has room to enter. Use it anywhere. At work, what would a critic of my idea say? And could they be partly right? In love, if I were them, how would I feel right now? Pride melts faster than any apology. Wisdom isn't cold detachment, it is warm awareness. See others clearly, and arguments lose their grip. You stop fighting people and start understanding them. Where understanding grows, peace follows. When anger, judgment, or certainty rises, pause. Ask quietly, what would someone who disagrees with me say? You might not like the answer, but you will grow from it. 5. What would happen if everyone thought like you? This final question drags beliefs back to earth. What would happen if everyone thought like you? It sounds harmless, but it reveals the truth behind our values. Ideas feel noble in theory until you scale them to humanity. People should do whatever makes them happy. It sounds freeing, but if everyone chased only what feels good and ignored responsibility and consequence, would society hold? Would trust survive? The Stoics tested wisdom by consequence, not comfort. Socrates stretched ideas to their limits. If everyone lived by this, would the world still work? It is the ultimate test of integrity. Truth that only works for you is preference, not principle. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What is right cannot be right for you alone, it must be right for all." Morality is not personal comfort, it is collective harmony. A man once said, "It's just a small lie, no one gets hurt." I asked, if everyone lied a little, would trust survive? He stayed silent. He already knew the answer. This question forces us to imagine the ripple effects of our beliefs. In isolation, anything can be justified. Scale it, and illusion meets consequence. Use it daily, not to shame, but to awaken. I cut corners, everyone does. If everyone thought that way, who would you trust to do the right thing? It doesn't matter, it's just me. What would happen if everyone thought like this? One thought can stop 100 small compromises. Impulse becomes integrity. Integrity isn't perfection, it is awareness of the bigger picture. Today, when everyone wants to be right, this question restores humility. Our actions aren't isolated, they are threads in a larger fabric. When threads weaken, the fabric tears. The Stoics called it sympatheia. Everything is connected. No action is too small, no thought too private to be without consequence. Before you act, speak, or believe, ask, if everyone thought like me, what kind of world would we live in? If the answer brings peace, honesty, or strength, you're on the right path. If it brings chaos, guilt, or harm, you've uncovered a truth that asks for change. This final question isn't about control, it is about conscience. It calls us to live with awareness and build a world guided by wisdom, not convenience. A Stoic life doesn't escape the world, it improves it, one honest question at a time. 6. The art of using questions wisely. You now have 5 powerful questions, quiet tools that pierce ego and illusion. But wisdom isn't only knowing what to ask, it is knowing when to ask and when to stay silent. Socrates mastered timing. Not every moment needs logic. Some moments need presence, empathy, and listening. Don't use these questions like swords to cut people down. That is arrogance in a clever outfit. A Stoic asks to awaken others and himself. A story. I sat in a tense meeting. One colleague was furious. Another tried to bury him in charts. The room burned. Then the quietest person said, "What are we missing because we're too busy being right?" Silence. The energy shifted. Awareness returned. Sometimes wisdom is just a pause. The Stoics practiced strategic silence. Ask, then wait. Let the silence work. People can run from your words, not from their thoughts. Use a reflection loop for vague answers. Could you explain that a bit more? What do you mean by that? Not a trap, a mirror. Then the consistency check. Earlier you said X, now you're saying Y. How do those fit? This isn't confrontation, it is clarity. When people hear their own contradiction, truth appears. Use the same methods on yourself. After an argument, ask, was I listening to understand or just waiting to reply? Did I speak to connect or to impress? Philosophers are forged in everyday conversations, not only in classrooms. The Stoic ideal isn't to be unshakable by force, but by understanding. Ask, listen, reflect, calmly, without ego, and you become stillness in a noisy world. Socrates once heard, "Your questions make people uncomfortable." He smiled. Growth begins with discomfort. His method survived because it didn't teach us to argue better, but to see clearer. Remember, use these 5 questions as lanterns, not knives. They light the way. Ask not to win, ask to awaken. And awaken yourself first. The Stoic way to end every conversation. Before you scroll away, stop for just 10 seconds. Ask yourself, what did this video awaken in you? A question? A truth? Or a quiet reminder that wisdom isn't something we chase, it's something we practice every day. If this message slowed your breathing or helped you see yourself a little clearer, this is your space. Here at Ancient Stoic Secrets, we're building more than a channel. We're building a circle of thinkers, people who value calm over chaos, clarity over noise, truth over approval. If that sounds like you, join us. Tap like so the algorithm knows wisdom still matters. Share this video with someone who needs reflection, not reaction. And subscribe to walk this path together. One insight, one practice, one honest question at a time. Because this isn't just philosophy, it's a way of living with courage, awareness, and quiet strength. Thank you for spending your time here. Until next time, stay grounded, stay curious, and remember, ask, don't argue. If this video echoed your own journey towards awareness, comment 3 words below. I choose awareness. That's how we'll know you're part of the movement where wisdom speaks louder than noise.
Stop arguing. Start thinking like a Stoic. Welcome to Ancient Stoic Secrets, where we rediscover timeless wisdom for a noisy world. If you've ever been pulled into a pointless argument that left you drained, frustrated, or misunderstood, this is for you. The wise don't fight with noise. They win with clarity. There's a quiet kind of power that doesn't shout, insult, or even try to convince. It asks questions. Questions sharp enough to cut through arrogance, illusion, and ego like a blade through fog. 2,000 years ago, Socrates mastered this art. He never tried to win an argument, yet he never lost one. Why? Because while others fought to prove, he sought to understand. The Stoics believed wisdom begins not with answers, but with questions. The right question doesn't attack, it awakens. When someone says, "You're wrong," you don't have to fight back. Ask, "How do you know that's true?" One question can unravel an entire illusion. This isn't manipulation, it is mastery of thought, emotion, and ego. Marcus Aurelius said, "The truth never argues, it simply is." So why argue when you can guide others to see truth for themselves? Imagine walking into any debate, at work, online, or at home, and never feeling defensive. Imagine being so calm and centered that every conversation becomes an opportunity to understand, not to dominate. That is the Stoic way. Here's the secret most people miss. Powerful questions aren't just for others. They are for you. A mind that questions itself becomes unshakable. It stops reacting and starts observing. It stops judging and starts understanding. It stops needing to be right and begins to be wise. Ask deeply and you'll see how much of what you know is borrowed from the crowd, your upbringing in fear. Only when you dare to ask, "Is this truly mine?" do you begin to think for yourself. Today, I'll share 5 timeless Stoic questions adapted from the Socratic method
that can end any argument, not by force, but by truth. Master them, and you won't just win conversations, you'll master yourself. Let's begin. 1. How do you know that's true? Every illusion begins with certainty. People love to sound confident. This is how things are. Everyone knows that. Socrates knew the loudest confidence often hides the weakest foundation. He asked the simplest question: how do you know that's true? That alone can make a proud mind crumble. Think about it. Most of what we know isn't ours. We borrow from the media, teachers, parents, and trends. We repeat beliefs like parrots without understanding their meaning. Someone says, money brings happiness. You ask, how do you know that's true? Suddenly the air changes. They pause. Deep down, they've never tested that belief. They've only heard it enough to trust it. Socrates exposed this again and again. People living by unexamined truths. The Stoics called it living asleep. The danger wasn't being wrong, but being unaware. I once met a man who believed he was unlucky. He said, nothing ever works out for me. I asked, how do you know that's true? He listed failed jobs, a breakup, health problems, then fell silent. He remembered the times he had succeeded but ignored. He wasn't unlucky, he was selectively blind. This first question doesn't shame, it awakens. It reveals the gap between what we feel and what is real. Use it anywhere. That dream is impossible. How do you know that's true? People can't change. One question can unravel an entire illusion. This isn't manipulation, it is mastery of thought, emotion, and ego. Marcus Aurelius said, the truth never argues. It simply is. So why argue when you can guide others to see truth for themselves? 2. What are you assuming? Every argument is an iceberg. What you see, the words, claims, opinions, is only the tip. What keeps it afloat is below the surface, assumptions. The second Stoic question cuts straight to that layer. You ask, what are you assuming? Everyone should go to college. Sounds reasonable, but beneath it sit quiet assumptions. Everyone wants the same life. Success equals money or status. Knowledge only lives in classrooms. Shine light on assumptions and the argument starts to tremble. Assumptions are the quiet roots of illusion. Marcus Aurelius warned, we see things not as they are, but as we assume them to be. Our minds carry invisible stories about love, failure, success, even God. Those stories shape how we see the world. If you believe people are selfish, you'll find proof everywhere. If you believe people are kind, you'll find proof too. Often, it isn't the world that changes, it's your assumption. A Stoic teacher once told his student, when you're angry, ask, what am I assuming right now? Anger grows from a hidden belief. I'm being disrespected. I deserve better. I'm right, they're wrong. Question the belief and anger loosens its grip. Use this in daily life. A friend says, I'm not good enough. Ask gently, what are you assuming? Maybe they assume success must look like someone else's life. Maybe they assume mistakes equal failure. One question can free them from years of comparison. Apply it inwardly and it becomes a tool of liberation. Feeling anxious? Ask, what am I assuming that creates this feeling? You may discover you're assuming the worst about the future, yourself, and others. Once you see that, you can breathe. Awareness breaks illusion. Every Stoic knew this. Unexamined assumptions keep the mind enslaved.
Next time you're in an argument or a moment of self-doubt, don't fight. Ask, what am I assuming? When you see the foundation, you can decide to rebuild or let it fall. Number 3, what evidence would change your mind? There's a difference between thinking and defending. Many don't think. They guard their beliefs like soldiers guarding a flag. That's why this question is powerful. What evidence would change your mind?
It sounds simple, yet it draws a clear line between a learner and a believer. If nothing could change your mind, thinking has stopped. Pride has replaced truth. A man told me, all rich people are corrupt. I asked, what evidence would change your mind? He paused, nothing. I just know. The conversation ended, not because I silenced him, but because he revealed he was protecting an identity, not truth. Epictetus said, no man can learn what he thinks he already knows. When ego marries opinion, the mind becomes a prison. Ask this to yourself or others, and you invite humility. You make space for growth. Two minds in conflict. I'm right, and that's final. I believe this, but if stronger evidence appears, I'll reconsider. Which mind is free? Always the second. It serves truth, not ego. Use this daily. This project will fail. What evidence would change your mind? If they can't answer, they aren't reasoning, they're reacting. Turn it inward. What evidence would make me rethink success, happiness, or my self-image? You may notice you've ignored proof of creativity, confidence, or resilience. The evidence has been there. You weren't looking. The Stoic path isn't about being unshakable in opinion. It's about being unshakable in honesty. I might be wrong doesn't weaken you. It empowers you. Truth becomes your ally. This question isn't about winning arguments. It wins your freedom from them. Ask it calmly, and the fear of being wrong fades. In Stoic practice, being wrong isn't failure. It is the first step toward wisdom. Number 4. What would someone who disagrees with you say? This one tests empathy, and it may be the hardest. What would someone who disagrees with you say? It forces you to step outside yourself. The ego wants to win, not to understand. A Stoic doesn't chase victory, he seeks clarity. Picture an argument about politics. You're sure you're right, they are sure you're wrong. Pause and ask, if I were them, what would I say? That small act shifts everything. Debate becomes dialogue. Understanding your opponent's view doesn't weaken yours, it refines it. Marcus Aurelius told his son, to understand another's argument better than they do, that is true wisdom. It isn't about agreement, it is about seeing fully. A retired soldier once argued endlessly with his teenage son about discipline. He shouted, "Follow the rules." His son rolled his eyes, "You don't understand me." Years later, the father asked himself, what would my son say if I asked why he hates rules?